Good evening, Dr. Bratton, fellow classmates. Now, before we start debating the argument of whether or not the global justice movement is a valid alternative to globalism, we have to understand what the global justice movement is, and we also have to understand the meaning of capitalism. Now, according to globaljusticemovement.org, they define the movement as to make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation without ecological offense or the disadvantage of anyone. Now, this might sound like a great idea, or it might even sound like a utopia for most people, but a little later on we'll talk about why this will probably not work. The global justice system has 5 principles which they run by. The first being global justice for all. That means that everyone's entitled to their basic necessities, such as warmth, clean air, clean food, water, and housing. So all those things will be provided to you. The second principle is respect for the earth. Every person has a responsibility to preserve the environment. The third principle is that abundance and freedom is possible. Now, that's a strong statement when you think about the entire human race, that abundance and freedom is possible. Now, these include things like the right of life, liberty, free markets, and equal justice. Now, the fourth principle is creativity at work, which allows each person to focus on what they feel passionate about to help move that specific field of study forward. And now the last principle is economic democracy, which means that the government's main job is to work for the people, to be transparent, and not to infringe on the rights of individuals. Now, to sum all this up, imagine living in a world where 7.5 billion human beings have all their necessities to live. They have their water, their food, their shelter. It changes a few things. It's a world that people wouldn't have to work to survive, but they will work to progress the human race in some shape, way, or form. Just think about that statement. Some people might sound kind of crazy, but let's talk about capitalism. Merriam-Webster defines capitalism as an economic system characterized by private or corporate ownership of capital goods, by investments that are determined by private decisions, and by prices, production, and the distribution of goods are determined mainly by competition in a free market. Now, according to capitalism.org, the only function of the government in such a society is to protect man's rights. And when they say protect man's rights, it's the only way a man's, and when I say man, I mean human being, can lose their rights is by force. So the government has to protect the individual from force, whether it's from a different government or simply your next door neighbor. Now, the global justice movement is not a valid alternative to capitalism for several different reasons. Even though the global justice movement sounds like a great idea, it simply can't work because there's no incentive to be motivated. For example, if everyone's needs were met, everyone had food, everyone had water, everyone had a house to live in, what would give anyone incentive to work the basic jobs? Who would build that house? What would be the farmer's motivation to grow the food if he knows that no matter how much time and effort he puts to growing that food, the end game will be the same? In a capitalistic society, everyone theoretically starts the same. Capitalism.org states that the brain is a main source to create wealth, and the only thing that an individual truly needs is freedom to become wealthy. Politically, this is a single cause of mass poverty, a lack of freedom. As we've seen in different economies in different countries across the globe, that people that are suppressed, people that have governments that don't allow them freedoms to think, how if the government dictates your everyday life, that's the main reason why people are in poverty and remain in poverty. Now keep in mind that the United States of America, many people think that we live in a truly capitalist society, but the truth is we don't. We live in a mixed economy with aspects of capitalism. In this day and age, the bottom line is that we have been taught that the world doesn't owe anyone anything. If you want to become successful and wealthy, a person has to work hard and be motivated. When you work hard and when you're motivated, you're rewarded. It could be money, objects, material things, but you get what you need. And the bottom line is you have the opportunities to become wealthy. Now it's on the individual if they take those opportunities and use them to their full potential. Thank you very much.